Good evening, everyone. We're going to wait just a second to get started as our participant total keeps climbing. In the meantime, I just wanted to make a quick announcement that we are hosting tonight's session in both English and Spanish. So my colleague Manuel Aliman, who is our district translator, is going to make an announcement now to give participants directions as to how they can enable Spanish interpretation for today's session.
Thank you, Melissa. Buenas tardes a todos, gracias por acompañarnos. Si desean escuchar la presentación de hoy en español, para aquellos que lo necesiten, si están utilizando un dispositivo, una laptop, la instrucción donde viene la función para traducción simultánea, se encuentra en la parte baja de su pantalla. Si buscan un icono, un dibujito como de un globo, un mundo, y si oprimen sobre de él, les va a aparecer la leyenda, el letrero que dice interpretación, y enseguida aparecerá un pequeño cuadro con las opciones de idiomas. En este caso deberán elegir la opción de español, oprimen español y los mandará a un canal diferente en donde me escucharán nada más a mí y en el fondo escucharán muy levemente a la persona que está hablando en inglés. Si por el contrario utilizan un celular, la opción está en la parte superior de su pantalla en forma de un icono, un dibujito con 3 puntos, uno tras otro, 3 puntos suspensivos. Aprietan ese icono, les va a aparecer la opción que dice interpretación de idioma, eligen de nuevo en las opciones el idioma español y de nuevo los mandará al canal de español donde me escucharán a mí. Eso es todo lo que tendrán que hacer. Gracias. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Manuel. We're going to go ahead and open up our Spanish interpretation room now. Okay, Dr. Horton, if you want to get us started, we're ready to go.
All right. Good evening, District 65 family. We have been working for, it seems like, for forever on getting to this point where we can open our schools. And tonight we're going to share with you quite a bit of the work that's been done around getting us ready to return safely for our students and definitely our staff. I wanted to go over the core values of what we've lived with since I joined back in June of 2020 regarding our priorities. Health and safety of students, staff, and community is our top priority. We wanted to be sure that we communicated and engaged with our families and community consistently. Well, there was caring and supportive culture around how we do this work, working to show compassion for each other as we're making decisions or even advocating for our children. Systemic, culturally responsive academic engagement. That is important as we think about how do we still stay the course as a community who has prided ourselves on closing the achievement gap, working to be equitable, and this has really been a challenge for us all. And then transparent communication. We've sent out over 30 communications, if not more, to our families and to our staff consistently, changing as things shifted with data being available from COVID-19, and that has been our priority. We've also had the community-based task force, which there were 60 members from across the city of Evanston and Skokie, ranging from teachers to parents, health experts, administrators, community members. We formed the Let's Get It Right school-based teams. As we work to transform our schools, we had to be strategic and build teams that can help lead that work. We had the Teaching and Learning Working Group, which was a very important group as we talked about transitioning many new curriculums that we adopted, because a lot of the curriculum that we were using, some of it was not adaptable in the best user-friendly way for remote. So we had to adapt new curriculum, and the team did that so well. Weekly check-ins with union leaders, meeting with them, all 5 union leaders, every single week to discuss and hear concerns and share and to brainstorm in many instances, which is something that I can tell you the union leaders were very thankful for, as well as myself, as we were doing that work. We actually have an agreement with collective bargaining groups. Again, over 23 plus bargaining sessions to get to that point, knowing that we are trying to bring everyone back safely and as effectively as possible. Staff and family surveys, we've sent out many, and our parents have responded consistently, giving us feedback And we've done some unique things to reach those families that we have a hard time touching. And then most importantly, that I would like to recognize and say, we have now formed a medical advisory group. And this medical advisory group is the cherry on top that allowed us to really take the science and put it into action and making it a lot easier for us to understand and to digest it within our structure. The launch of the hybrid learning model, remote and in-person teaching and learning, remote and AM, PM full day in person.
Dr. Horton, I'm sorry, before we go on to that next slide, can we do some introductions of the team?
I'm sorry, yeah.
Put the deck on.
Let's do it. Sorry about that.
No worries.
All right.
All right. So I'm Dr. Stacy Beardsley, and I am Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction for District 65.
Hi, I'm Joe Caravello, and I'm Director of Technology with District 65.
Hi, my name is Beatrice Davis, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources for School District 65, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Romy DeCristofaro. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bernie Judd. I'm the Director of Health Services, and my pronouns are she and ella.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andalib Kilgadi. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Schools with a focus on the elementary schools, and my pronouns are he, his, and him.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lou Gata. I'm the Director of Transportation.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Latarsha Green, Deputy Superintendent.
Dr. Horton, Superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Terrence Little. I'm the Assistant Superintendent with a focus on middle school, and my pronouns is he, him, his, and elle.
And I'm Melissa Messenger, Director of Communications, pronouns she and her.
Kate Mason Schultz. I'm the Nutrition Services Coordinator, pronouns she and her.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rafael Obafemi. I'm the Chief Financial and Operating Officer for the district.
Hello, I'm David Saglin. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at La Rabida Children's Hospital and a member of the Illinois chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics School Reopening Workforce Task Force. Pleased to be here. Also a District 65 parent, or I was when my kids were younger.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Sharon Robinson. I am a pediatrician with North Shore University Health System, as well as one of the physician directors for primary care. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am also a current District 65 parent. Very glad to be here as well.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Bridget Wild. I'm a pediatric hospitalist at North Shore University Health System and the co-chair of the Child Protection Committee. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I also am a proud D65 parent.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Melissa, for redirecting and getting that's important that we know who's supporting this work. Again, I wanted the remote and in-person teaching and learning. We have remote, we have AM, PM full day in person, 3,618 students returning to in-person, 3,697 students continue with remote learning. Learning pathways based on parental choice to the greatest extent possible. And we know that we have a school that we have been trying to figure out some other ways to extend opportunities to bring those students back, and we're continuing to work on that. Of course, the limitations are due to building capacities, following social distancing, and also staffing. Prioritizing return of students according to the ISB guidelines. Again, what are those priorities? Free and reduced lunch, emerging bilingual, our McKinney-Vento, which is our homeless population, and students who are free and reduced lunch, special education, emerging bilingual, and what is the fourth one? I'm sorry, having a brain freeze.
504s.
Yeah. What's the fourth one?
504s.
504s, yes, special education. Thank you. That's extremely important. All right. Considerations for instructional model. Half of the students are returning, must follow the science and all current health and safety guidelines. That is our priority. I want to send it over to Dr. Kilgatti and Dr. Beardsley.
Absolutely. So on this calendar, as you're looking at right now, it's really been important for us to try to forecast where we're headed. And so today, many of you, if not all of you, will be getting notification of how we've set up our new classes. Our goal, as much as possible, was to re-roster classrooms to ensure that there was consistency across rooms and that students continue to be matched with their teacher. Now, in order to ensure, given the number of students we want, to ensure that the maximum number of students could return, and at the same time, given our staffing constraints, there were a number of situations where we had to make changes, but our goal was to minimize those. So that's happening today. And also, the reason why you got that information today versus in a week or two when we've completely finished our re-rostering system was because we want to ensure that there's time for a transition to allow families and students to really be able to transition academically, socially, and emotionally. Dr. Beardsley?
Sure. A couple other dates on this slide that are really important to understand is one, that we will be engaging in our teacher conferences the week of February 8th. That is also part of the transition because should your child need to transition to a different classroom teacher, this is an opportunity for you to understand from your child's current teacher, get an update on their learning, see how learning is going, and have that really important conversation focused on how learning is going for your child. Additionally, it's really important to pay attention to our calendar for the weeks of February 8th and February 16th. Our students will remain in their current classes in K-5 and middle school. K-5, they'll have asynchronous learning on Monday, February 8th. They'll have, in K-5, the last day with their classroom teacher, if in fact they need to be reassigned to a different classroom teacher on Tuesday, February 9th. And that will be live instruction. The remainder of the week, Wednesday the 10th and Thursday the 11th, is planning time to allow our educators to return to the schools and the classrooms and help to get established and ready to conduct on-site learning the following Tuesday, February 16th. And Friday, February 12th was a day off already connected to our conferences. So please note the week of February 8th, asynchronous on Monday, live instruction on Tuesday. If your student is being assigned to a new teacher, that will be their last day in that class with that teacher. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that week, there will be no instruction for students and there will be no asynchronous assignments. And we will return to on-site or remote teaching on Tuesday, February 16th with our educators.
Thank you, team. Science, safety, and school reopenings. I want to reiterate, the science of this pandemic has its shifts. We make better decisions and stronger decisions in our work to reopen our schools safely. There are a lot of questions regarding why didn't we do this back in the fall. There was not a lot of science available that we were comfortable with. But we've been able to get comfortable with the science because now we have formed even more comfortable, I should say, because now we have a medical advisory group. And I would just like to say, we convened in January, but there was an original communication led by Dr. Wild in December, which was important, extended an olive branch. And we provided additional health guidance, operational considerations, and review of metrics. It's a diverse team of medical professionals who represent various disciplines, work both within and outside of our community, and all with firsthand COVID-19 experience. Advisory also includes union leaders, district administrators, and parents. Some of the discussion topics included the current COVID-19 landscape, both regionally and in Evanston Skokie, macro and micro health metrics, which you'll learn more about. Mitigations measures and the data and research on school openings. I want to be very clear because these individuals, this group of doctors are helping us out. They didn't have to do this. This is really an honor to have them join us. And they have not made a decision for us to return to in-person. This is a decision that's made by administration, myself and my team and our school board. I want to make sure that that is clear as we move forward. They were thought partners and they gave us the research. and the knowledge that we needed in order to open our doors. Ongoing collaboration to monitor local and regional health conditions, mitigation plans, vaccine awareness, which is huge, and more than anything, just additional support. So I want to introduce Dr. Soglin, who's going to share with us more information and more knowledge and more science about our health metrics.
Thank you very much, Dr. Horton. I really do appreciate being here. So first of all, you will be following all the state-directed mitigation. If the test positivity rate, which is usually measured on a rolling 7-day average so that one single spike doesn't determine actions, reaches 12 or higher in our region, region 10, then we will be moving by state order into phase 3 mitigation. And that would require an adaptive pause and a pivot back to remote learning. We'll also be looking at more local metrics, including the attendance area, specifically advice from Evanston's Health and Human Services Department. And then if there is enough community spread that there's difficulty staffing in-person learning, then that obviously would also have an impact, as well as decreased access to PPE and other issues that may arise. As Dr. Horton said, this has been a incredible year of learning for us medically as well as in the school systems. So first, I just want to take a look at the situation of COVID-19 currently. These slides were all taken on Tuesday. So you can see that the new cases in Illinois are on a nice decline, as they are new cases in Cook County. Both are moving in the right direction. They're both still high. They're higher than they were in spring when we first all learned about COVID-19. So the fact that they're coming down is important, but does not mean we can stop wearing masks or stop distancing or any of the other mitigation techniques we've been using up till now. I mentioned region 10, that's the state designation for our region. You can see this is a slide of the positivity rates instead of just the new cases, but you can see that's also coming down very nicely. We are significantly below the 12% that would move us into mitigation number 3, that's the red line, and we're actually even below the 8%, which is the yellow dotted line. So we're moving in the right direction, although there's still a significant COVID burden, obviously. I want to talk now about the difference between community metrics and what happens in schools. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we were very worried that just getting people together in schools would add to community spread. In fact, we've learned quite a bit over the last year, both in the United States as well as internationally. This first graph is a reflection of cases of COVID in children and adolescents less than 18 years of age in Mississippi. And that central line that Melissa's showing you is the even mark. So anything that's on one side, on this side of the line, indicates that you're at greater risk for developing COVID. Anything on the other side of the line indicates that you're at less risk of developing COVID. Anything that crosses the line means the risk is about the same. So obviously it makes sense that if you have a close contact, that's the very first bar up there, close contact with someone with COVID-19, that puts you at dramatically greater risk of developing COVID-19. Similarly, being involved in social gatherings like weddings or funerals or holiday parties, or even children's social gatherings like play dates, those also put you at significantly higher risk, as does having a visitor in the home. Really interestingly, is what protects you from developing COVID if you're a child less than 18 is being in a school where people wear masks. It not only doesn't increase spread, it decreases spread. It protects children to be in a school where people are wearing masks. Even being in any school at all is neutral. which is the line right above that. But being in a school where people are wearing masks, which is what's called for in the District 65 plan, actually protects children from getting COVID. The next graph, I have to put my glasses on to see that, looks at 17 schools in a school district in Wisconsin. That top blue line indicates the positivity rates. We had already talked about 12 being the mitigation level in Illinois. Those rates run from 7% to 40% positivity rates. Sky high numbers that we've never even come close to in this region. The solid black line also just looks at the number of cases per 100,000 population. Again, numbers we've never seen in this region, up to 1,200 cases. And yet, the important thing about this slide is that very small blue dotted line at the bottom. Those are the cases spread in schools. Almost none, despite huge community spread. Next slide. The CDC, through their Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, MMWR, put out a nice graphic that kind of summarized that last study that I was talking about. So they looked at those 17 schools where they used masks. They had pods of students. Staff maintained 6 feet of distance whenever possible, and they had good contact tracing and quarantine after exposures. And 92% of those students were using masks. And during those 13 weeks of training, there were 7 cases of COVID among students, among almost 5,000 students, and no cases of COVID among staff who got it at school. You can still get it in the community, but who got it at school. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Robinson.
Thank you so much. So I don't know about you, but I feel like since the COVID pandemic, I have incorporated more new words into my vocabulary than I have in my entire life. So I thought I would take a moment just to explain briefly 2 of those terms that get tossed around quite a bit. Those are metrics and mitigation. So metrics are numbers or statistics that basically quantify disease spread. So those are, for example, the positivity rate that we look at to let us know how COVID is impacting our community. Mitigation means reducing the severity, the seriousness, and the incidence of COVID-19. What we know is that schools can successfully conduct in-person learning regardless of the community metrics, as long as the mitigation strategies are in place and are layered. And I want to reiterate that there has been so much data that has come out recently to support this, that it's incredibly compelling. And I also would like to give District 65 just an incredible amount of appreciation and gratitude for their very comprehensive mitigation measures, because that's how we're going to keep our staff safe, and that's how we're going to keep our students safe. So we are taking a layered approach to mitigation in District 65. Level 1, these are the most important things that we must do in order to keep everyone safe and to keep schools running in person. Masks, hand hygiene, social distancing. The fortunate thing is that, for better or for worse, we all have plenty of experience with COVID now. And in Evanston in particular, we have proven that we know how to keep ourselves safe. We know how to wear masks over the age of 2. We practice good hand hygiene, and we practice social distancing. So if you do those things and those things alone, you have a very, very good chance of keeping everyone safe. On top of that, you layer level 2 initiatives such as symptom screening and cohorting, or putting students in pods, which again is what District 65 is doing, as you'll hear. And then level 3, which is just kind of an additional level of protection that, and again, District 65 has gone above and beyond, as you'll hear, in their enhanced cleaning, ventilation systems, and their contact tracing. And really what I want to hone in on, and I'll talk about this a little later, but what matters most, in addition to our face masks, hand hygiene, social distancing, you'll hear me say it over and over, is our behavior outside of the school environment. What we do outside of school as parents and children and staff is what is going to dictate how safely we can re-enter in-person with in-person learning. Next slide. So I'm taking a pivot here and just wanted to quickly touch on the COVID-19 vaccine, because I know that's getting a lot of attention, a lot of press. It's very, very exciting. As most of you know, 2 vaccines have been approved for emergency use. The Pfizer vaccine, which is 2 doses 21 days apart, and the Moderna vaccine, 2 doses 28 days apart. Not to get too technical, but both of these vaccines use a special mRNA, which is a part of the virus that is put inside of the vaccine, and that is what produces a spike protein in our bodies. I want everyone to understand that the messenger RNA, once it gets injected, it disintegrates and it goes away. It is not embedded and to part of your genetic material. It completely dissipates. The spike protein is what signals your body to produce antibodies to COVID-19 and protects you from it. This is not a live vaccine. So this is just a piece, like I said, of the genetic material, or the genetic code of the virus. Side effects from the vaccine, such as a sore arm, a little bit of fatigue, are common but not dangerous. I will share personally, I received the Pfizer vaccine. I had a sore arm after the first dose. The second dose, I had literally no symptoms. Now, maybe that was because I was so euphoric, because I had gotten the vaccine that I didn't notice. I don't know, but I felt great. Everyone 16 and older can be safely vaccinated unless they have an allergy to polyethylene glycol, which is a material that is found in a drug called Miralax. And this does include pregnant and breastfeeding women, as well as immunocompromised individuals. But of course, it's important to speak with your healthcare provider about this. And this is not on the slide, but just to briefly say, I know there's new variants out of the COVID-19 virus, and people are concerned about the vaccine efficacy. We do know that these vaccines are still effective against these variants. We just don't know if they are as effective as they are against the original strain of the virus, where they had an efficacy of about 94 to 95%. But obviously, we still recommend everyone get vaccinated, but that's why it's so important to still anchor off of our masking, hand hygiene, and social distancing. And then now I'll turn it over, I believe, to Dr. Wild.
Oh, I was going to piggyback and say we are so grateful that the vaccine is over 90% effective, but that the mitigation strategies that D65 is implementing within the schools is also greater than 90% effective at mitigating risk. And so regardless of what is going on with people's vaccination status, we just cannot reiterate enough how important it's going to be to adhere to that masking and hand washing and that layered approach to safety at school.
Well, I don't think anyone on this call that's listening is confused to why we feel so much more confident. So thank you, Dr. Robinson, Dr. Sogland, Dr. Wild, for that well-informed presentation. Every time I listen to you all speak, I pick up new nuggets that make me feel even more confident that we are moving in the right direction. So I want to, really thank you for that. Our board thanks you as well. What to expect the day school to look like? This is what we've been waiting to get since I signed on back in December of 2000. I don't know when I signed on. We're 2019 to come join this district. We are going to be able to bring our students and our staff back to school. And I would like for Dr. Beardsley to walk us through on what student schedules will look like.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start us, and then some of my colleagues are going to pick up in our descriptions. Similar to Dr. Robinson, we just wanted to tee up some of the language that has been bouncing around in this world of COVID and teaching and learning. I think most of us have these down at this point, but as we're talking it through, I wanted to make sure that everybody in our audience was clear and was following our conversation tonight. First term, and this one is new to our space right now, is concurrent live teaching. And what concurrent live teaching, we'll have concurrent live teaching in our middle schools. And what this is that our students at home will be learning with our students in the classroom, the same lesson, the same time. So our educators will be on site or home teaching a lesson to the students that are on site and remotely at the same time. So that's our concurrent live teaching. Couple things to note, as part of returning to school, we want to make sure that we are honoring our students' needs and our teachers' needs. So the majority of classes will have the classroom teacher there. If a classroom teacher is not able to return, they will deliver that instruction remotely in the middle school while that classroom space is supervised. And so that leads us into the second term here, remote, which simply states that the teacher and the student are in different places while our instruction is occurring. As many of you know, this model of return also offers hybrid plus for some of our priority students. Dr. Horton touched on those different priority categories earlier in the year, or earlier in our presentation tonight. Hybrid plus allows students in our kindergarten through 5th grade to stay in our school buildings for the full day. They engage in the morning block of math and literacy. They then have a supervised lunch and break, and then they move into their afternoon block, which is a blend of synchronous and asynchronous learning, which takes us to our last 2 terms. And having 2 kids in District 65, I think we've got these terms down because my kids tell me every Monday they have asynchronous, but asynchronous is when the students are learning at basically on their time and their schedule, not with the teacher directly. Synchronous is when our teachers and our students are together at the same time, learning together. So we can go on to the next slide.
So the JAH early childhood programs will have both full and half day in-person programming for Head Start, preschool for all, and special education. Remote programming options will continue to be offered with full and half day schedules as well. And for those students continuing on the remote path, schedules will remain consistent. Families have been contacted about their child's assignment and teacher information for the remainder of the year. And you can find all of this information on the district website. So I will turn it to Dr. Kelgadi to talk about the elementary schedule.
Thank you. And so for the remainder of the week following that day of asynchronous learning, we will be running a learning model with an AM and a PM block. In this model, you're going to see students who are returning to learning at school will attend in person, either in the morning or in the afternoon. For students who attend in the morning, they will start at 9 a.m. and go to 11:20. And students in the afternoon will attend from 1:10 to 3:30. In addition to the AM, PM on-site learning blocks, we are offering what we're calling a hybrid plus program that Dr. Beardsley just went over in our glossary section. This allows our students who are benefit from a greater support to stay the full day. I think it's important to note that the second half of their day, whether it's AM or PM, would include supervision for remote learning with additional supports based on those individual needs. We are offering those students to families and students and families who, based on criteria that is really defined by the state, would be able to get support. On the next slide, we're going to go a little bit deeper into how our day goes, and I want to turn it over to Dr. Beardsley.
All right, and really these next 2 slides are intended to give families a visual about the day. Again, our Mondays remain asynchronous. We'll have our half-hour meeting with educators in the morning, and then the remainder of the day is asynchronous. For a student who's scheduled to be on site in the morning, they will arrive and be part of learning, as Dr. Kelgadi said, from 9 to 11:20 in the morning on site. Our on-site learning, or the learning that is directly coming from in kindergarten through 5th grade, the homeroom teacher, is focused on social emotional learning, literacy, and math. And so for this child, their mornings, Tuesday through Friday, will be very focused on social emotional learning, literacy, and math. Then the middle of the day, does have a break built in for lunch and essentially open time. And for our educators, that's lunch, planning and preparation, so that we can begin again, potentially with a second group of kids on site in the afternoon at 1:10. Now, for a student in this slide who was on site in the morning, they will engage in remote learning in the afternoon. Now, something that's tricky about the afternoon is that the children will have synchronous and asynchronous work in kindergarten through 5th grade. The afternoon for this child would have PE and fine arts, as well as asynchronous assignments, potentially more practice in reading, writing, and math, as well as a lesson in science or social studies. It will be one or the other. So students are expected to engage in both halves of the day, the morning with their primary classroom educator, the afternoon with some asynchronous and synchronous tasks, because they'll still have that opportunity to engage live, but remotely with their fine arts and PE educators. We could slide to the next, to move to the next slide. This is a student who has the opposite schedule. They're on site in the afternoon and would be engaging in that blend of synchronous and asynchronous remote learning activities in the morning. Now, keep in mind it's asynchronous. So if our schedules make it difficult for students to be doing that asynchronous work specifically in the morning, then there's flexibility in the day to get that done. Yet students are expected to be engaging in both halves of the day in order to have the full learning experience. One thing that is important to note is that the students that are staying remote move to this same AM/PM schedule. So if your child is staying remote, their schedule will shift from what it is now to this AM/PM model. And they would have their math and literacy and social emotional learning with their primary classroom educator synchronous. They would have the break in the middle of the day, and then they would have their remote synchronous and asynchronous learning in the other half of the day. So that is an important note for those of you that are staying remote. If we could go on to the next slide. We've touched on this, but it's helpful to kind of see it in writing because I know there's a good bit of information coming at people. This again notes that our students will continue to have synchronous or live, but remote interactions with our fine arts and PE educators in kindergarten through 5th grade, 4 days a week. In the portion of the day that is remote, they will continue to have math and literacy practice activities that will help to reinforce the learning from the first half of the day that is synchronous with their classroom educator. And then science and social studies will also continue, but in that asynchronous space with a lesson a day, rotating from science to social studies for the remainder of the year. All right, and that's just the reminder again that if we stay remote, that you're shifting to the same schedule. Mr. Little?
All right, everybody, good evening. What you're looking at right now is our middle school schedule. It's right now our big 3 middle schools, Chute, Haven, and Nichols. Mondays will be asynchronous. Tuesday through Friday will be from 8:30 to 3:30 in person for students that were selected to come back. Remote, and teachers will be teaching concurrently. So all the students at home will be seeing live what the students in person will be seeing. So they'll be getting the exact same instruction, either in school or at home. Next slide.
All right, and this just again gives a quick visual, and to note, as Mr. Little just stated, essentially students are going to continue to experience their 10-period day and the same classes that they've been experiencing up to this point, and will run a very similar schedule to what they are running right now. A couple important things to note is that students will be cohorted into small groups, similar to what we just heard from the medical advisors. They will be assigned to a classroom, and it is the educators that will move from classroom to deliver instruction. The couple other things to think about is as we make this shift, educators will be launching instruction with the remote students and the students in classroom at the same time. And what we may see is educators moving into small groups in order to be able to engage specifically with students at home or students on site to make sure that we're meeting the learning needs of our students. I think we can move on to the next one, Mr. Little.
Okay, everybody, this is where it gets a little complicated. So I'm going to slow it down a little bit so we can get to this. All right, as I explained in our last slide, middle school is asynchronous on Monday, Tuesday through Friday. We're teaching concurrently. So the students that are in school will be getting live instruction, and the students who are at home will see live instruction. They'll see exactly what the students see inside of the classroom. All right, now we're going to talk about Bessie Rhodes and King Arts, our magnet schools. For everybody who's not aware, our magnet schools are K through 8. So they have a split model going on. Dr. Beardsley and Dr. Kilgotti already explained the K through 5 model. The K through 5 model will go on in our magnet schools as described above. They'll have an AM and PM session. The AM session starts at 8 o'clock, from 8 o'clock to 10:40, or you'll be in the PM session from 12 o'clock to 2:45. Now, this is where the trickery comes. We have a little sorcery in our magnet schools, because our magnet schools are not only doing the K through 5, they're doing the 6 through 8 schedule. So during 6 through 8, our students will be in school from Tuesday through Thursday. Everybody will receive asynchronous learning on Monday. And Tuesday through Thursday, they'll be in classes from 8 to 2:45 at Bessie Rhodes and King Arts, the students who were selected in person. So the in-person students will be there, while the students who are at home will be seeing concurrent teaching, which means they'll be seeing live instruction, exactly what the students in class will be seeing. All right, go to the next slide. Right now, we want to talk about Rice, another one of our specialty schools. Rice right now will be doing asynchronous on Mondays. Half the students will be coming to school on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. The other half will be coming on Wednesday and Thursday. And what we'll be aiming for is to reincorporate our students in slightly to where they will be able to come back to school 4 days a week around trimester 3. But we want to first start off with 2 days a week and just gradually bring them back. All right. They'll be starting at 9 o'clock on 9 o'clock Tuesday through Friday and ending at 3. Okay, next slide. Park School. Park is another one of our specialty schools. Once again, Mondays will be asynchronous. Tuesday through Friday will be 9 to 3:15. This is another special population that we have where they'll be coming in on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then another group will be coming in on Wednesday and Thursday. And as they get comfortable to the building, in case-by-case scenarios, we will start gradually reintroducing our students to where they'll be coming back for 3 days, and eventually they'll come back for 4 days each week. All right.
All right.
Hand it over to, and I'm gonna say this, Dr. Romy, go right ahead.
Sure. So as schools are planning to welcome back our students with IEPs, our teams have strived to maintain as much consistency as possible. However, there may be some shifts in case managers or service providers, and parents will be notified if service providers on their child's team will be changing. All students with IEPs already have an individualized remote learning plan, but when the students return in person, these will need to be updated to account for the in-person learning that will be addressed when they're at school. Once in person, services may include, push in support into the classroom or pull out support in small groups in safe, socially distanced spaces. And some remote related services will need to continue remotely. For students who did not make adequate growth or experience significant regression or loss of skills during the remote period, parents and guardians can expect that their school teams will develop what we're calling a COVID impact transition plan. And this would be developed to provide some additional supports to address the skill loss. IEP meetings will continue to happen virtually, and schools will continue to follow legal timelines for evaluations. And then evaluations may continue to be both in person and remote. Finally, more information about ESY and our summer programming will be coming soon. We are also in the early stages of planning for some additional summer learning opportunities for any of our students who experience significant skill regression during the remote period. All right, you can go on to the next slide. So this is addressing social emotional learning, and I'll refer this to as SEL. But we recognize that we need to continue to be proactive and strategic in supporting the mental health of our students and staff. This is and has been a priority, and we've incorporated many additional SEL strategies and supports throughout remote learning, and will continue as we prepare to return in person. So when we reopen, classrooms will be initially focused on building community and supporting those social emotional needs of our students. We'll continue with daily sunset and sunrise circles, and we'll be incorporating daily well-being checks. And there is a process for making referrals for any additional mental health support if there are concerns raised by teachers, parents, guardians, or if something comes up through those daily well-being checks. And then, as always, if there is a serious concern that comes up or arises, we will continue with our protocols for conducting risk assessments and then responding accordingly. The district is also continuing to offer sessions for staff focused on integrating SEL strategies, self-care, and wellness. Professional learning around trauma-informed practices with an emphasis on healing is offered. Educators also have access to an SEL toolkit that will support classroom-based activities. And then our building teams, family and community engagement teams, and our social workers continue to be very active in reaching out and partnering with families to share and provide resources. So I will turn it back to Dr. Wild, who is going to continue to talk about emotional well-being.
Yeah, on that note, whether your student is pivoting to hybrid learning or remaining remote, we want to just take the opportunity to honor that change has been and will continue to be a part of their lives and really all of our lives. And that kids are really like sponges, picking up on everything going on around them, including stress, but they don't always have insight into how they're being impacted emotionally. So just offering road signs for what stress will manifest like depending on your child's or student's age. In those younger school age kids, stress may look like a functional change, a loss of appetite, change in their sleep. And in those later pre-adolescent school age kids, they might internalize distress as either withdrawal or anxiety, externalize it with actually aggression and acting out or irritability, or develop physical symptoms like headaches and abdominal pain. And just being able to recognize this for your kid is kind of a helpful reminder that you can pause, offer them a little bit of grace, maybe even right now take a minute to strategize as a family and say, hey, another change is coming. Let's talk about what that's like for you. And if I see it, do you want me to talk about it with you? Or what's going to be good for you? Let's have a coping strategy. Do you need 15 minutes every day when you get home to be by yourself? Do you need 10 minutes at the end of every day to really talk about the day? Do we want to come up with a family affirmation that we're all going to say together to each other's face or in the mirror every morning? Should we maybe practice some mindfulness and do some meditation daily? Just having these conversations up front will validate for your child that it's okay to feel these things, experience these things, give them a way to bring it to your attention. And really, I mean, we all need a little bit of self-care here and there too. I know my own child taught me, courtesy of her SEL experiences in D65, all about the zones of regulation.
Good evening, everybody. Just want to give you a quick background on how devices were used before the pandemic when kids were in school. Most of our 6th to 8th graders all had iPads. They're one-to-one, so they brought them home and brought them back to school. And our K through 5 mostly used Chromebooks, iPads, mostly in the lower grades. So what we want to achieve is for every kid to have their own device and bring it back from home to school every day. So students that do not have a device for in-person instruction will receive one once they come back to school. So that we want to make sure that the ones that did get their devices during the summer and here in the fall, that they bring those back, and that's the device that they're going to use. All 3rd to 5th graders will have equipped with a carrying case that they're going to bring back and forth so to prevent damage and ease of transporting. Students should not bring a device to school unless it's a district device. We just don't want any other devices in the network, and that device is not going to work anyway. So like I said earlier, students will no longer share devices. All students will use their district device for the remainder of the school year. I also want to mention that they should bring their device fully charged every day. That's so important for the student. Thank you. Next slide.
All right. A lot of information, so we want to make sure you take it all in. It's quite a bit to absorb and to kind of visualize. But I want to take this next phase to talk about what to expect the school day to look like. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Davis, our Assistant Super for HR.
Good evening. So earlier this evening, you heard Dr. Robinson talk about mitigation levels. And in mitigation level 2, there's symptom screening. So what that looks like for District 65 is that we're going to use a system called Crisis Go Safety iPass. And we're going to use that to manage self-certifications for all of our students, all of our staff, as well as any essential visitors to our building. It's a web-based system. It's going to be something you can access easily on any device. There's also an app that you can download to any smartphone. I really want to focus this evening with respect to students. So the self-certification form, it's only going to collect essential information related to COVID-19. It's something that literally can be completed in seconds. I do mine every morning, and it probably takes me about 15 seconds. It will also be available to families in multiple languages. It'll be translated through Google Translate. A daily reminder is also going to be sent directly from the Crisis Go system to parents' emails. And we're going to send it out bright and early at 5:30, not to wake you up, but just so that, depending on how you like to start your day, it is available as early as 5:30 every morning. And if you prefer not to use it in your email, again, you can access it from your smartphone. We are hoping that this is going to become part of every family's daily routine, because we need these completed prior to students coming to school. This means before they get on a school bus, before they leave to walk, and really, ideally, they'd be completed an hour prior to the start of the school day, because that gives the staff at the schools an opportunity to view the data in the system and see that our students have certified. So I just really want to stress how important this is. This is a mitigation measure that we are using. We do want to prevent anyone who potentially has had COVID, I shouldn't say has COVID or has come in close contact from entering our buildings. And just to assist with this process, we're going to have a practice run. So there'll be more information coming out next week. But during the week of February 8th, we're going to have those messages start coming out to families so that you'll be able to see what they look like and practice using them, so that when we start on February 16th, all of our children coming back, you'll be acquainted with how to complete their self-certifications. And so more information will come to families next week. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Mr. Little for what school arrival will look like.
All right, then call me back in. How everybody doing? The first thing I want to mention is please self-certify. That is one of the most, if you don't get anything else out of our presentation today, it is making sure we self-certify for our students, because if we do not, arrival at school is going to be very difficult for us. So to make it a little smoother, make it better, please make sure that we're self-certifying. You can actually self-certify the day before. You don't have to wait till the morning of. But all that information will be released at a later date. Another thing I want to talk about is please make sure that devices are fully charged before your children go to bed. Make sure that they're plugging it up. Like you say, let's build that routine into our children. Let's make them a little more responsible, but we have to make sure as parents that we're double checking that it's charged, because when we come to school, we want to make sure it's fully charged. Once again, we want to go down to facial coverings. Please make sure that you're sending them with an extra facial covering. Don't just count on the one that he has. We know we have kids, things happen, straps break, anything can happen. We just want to make sure that he has an extra one that he can pull right out and put on. And if you can, maybe send 2 extra ones, because maybe his friend forgot one and we can figure something out. Use the designated arrival entrance. Each school will be sending out information. They'll let you know where's the bus entrance, where's the walker entrance, where's the driver entrance. So each school will be sending it out to you. So be looking forward to it coming from your schools. Make sure you're maintaining 6 feet of distance from others. Now, this is going to be critical for arrival and dismissal. So please be patient with us during that first week, because we understand that the students are going to come back and they're going to be totally excited. So we understand that they may be a little jumbled together during that first week, because this is a new system and routine for them. So it's something new. They haven't seen their friends in a while. So it's going to be something that we're going to be working on, but we're asking that our parents, please make sure that you're talking to your students and letting them know that, hey, you know, I know you're excited, but we got to keep this 6 foot distance, especially in the first couple of weeks. Last but not least, this is the sad news, but non-essential visitors will not be allowed in the buildings. And they sent me to send the bad news. Non-essential visitors will not be allowed in the building. If you need to come to the building for anything, please make sure you're checking with the principal first or any school administrator, so that way we can set up an appointment. We can be expecting you, because the first thing, please understand, is our student safety, and second is our staff safety. So we want to make sure that everybody in the buildings is safe. So please make sure you set up that appointment. With that being said, I'm going to send it over to Ms. Mason Schultz.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm going to talk food for just a minute. So with the return of in-person learners to our buildings, nutrition services will really be operating 2 service models, if you will. So our weekly curbside meal pickups have been taking place since August, and those will continue to occur for as long as we have remote learners. And then secondly, for our in-person learners, our AM and our hybrid students will have the opportunity to grab a breakfast on their way into school each day. Those breakfasts will be taken to classrooms and eaten inside the classrooms. And our hybrid plus students will also be offered a lunch to have in their afternoon sessions. So eating in the classroom allows us to maintain appropriate social distancing. Students will wash hands before and after eating, and classrooms will also be cleaned and food surfaces sanitized prior to meals. Next slide, I think.
Good evening, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about how transportation is going to look like moving forward. We have a lot of different schedules. Middle schools in person are more of a full day. Some of our specialty schools are on a couple of days a week. And of course, our elementaries are on AM and PM. But none of this really, although things are going to look a lot different, my mission is still always going to be the same, where the start of the day and the bus ride, from what I can remember, and my kids always remember, really can be a pleasant experience, even during these times. And I really am going to try to eliminate the anxiety that students have when they come and ride the bus on their way to school. Some of the ways I'm going to do that, first of all, your routes from last year, even though we have significantly less students riding, we're going to be keeping the same number of routes. So this way there'll be many fewer kids on each route. The stops that you had last year will be your stop. Your route will be your route. However, in some of the elementaries, instead of in the AM and in the PM, those routes will now be an AM pickup, an AM drop off, a PM pickup, and a PM drop off. But again, your route and your stop will remain the same. And since we're not consolidating routes, the amount of kids will be much fewer to maintain social distancing, as well as provide any contact tracing if need be. Look for any kind of communication next week in terms of your route assignment. And you can always check the website and email me at transportation@district65.net. And that way I can answer any other questions, or if you're not sure exactly when your time or maybe when your student will be picked up, that's always a good way to get in touch with me at transportation@district65.net. So that being said, about how the rides and the routes will start to flow, some of the ways that we are going to make sure that we're keeping people safe is all of the routes are going to go through a thorough cleaning at the end of each day. In between every single routes, a lot of the high touch areas are going to be cleaned and sanitized. There will be a thermometer gun and boxes of extra masks for embarking on the bus. So each kid will have their temperature taken. If they did forget their mask, which they shouldn't, because we know that they're going to be packing 2 or 3 extras, but we will have them on each bus. Bus drivers and bus monitors have already gone through new COVID training a couple of times this year, and our next one is scheduled for next Thursday in terms of how to go about the temperature checks and making sure that everybody has the self-certification. There will be a bus aide on the routes to assist in all of this, and also to make sure that students are in their correct seats and that they are distanced and wearing their mask. And then, like we said, they will be arriving given at a certain door to which each school is designated for bus arrivals. And again, students will be given a seat that they can make sure that they are social distance. But again, want to emphasize that we are providing the same amount of routes, even though there are far fewer kids riding, and that should really help alleviate some of the anxiety I know that we're all feeling during these times. So again, my goal is always to give students a pleasant experience on the bus, even during these challenging times.
All right. Thank you, Lou and Kate. 2 of my favorite times of school when I was a child, a lunch and riding on the bus. I love that. And that's so important that we have this information. So, Dr. Robinson, you began to talk to us about the mitigation and measures and some terminology. Can you go a little bit more in depth and share some more of that information with us?
Absolutely, I would be happy to. So as I mentioned before, we know now that there are proven and effective strategies to keep our schools safe. And those really start again with those that first layer of protection, which are those masks, social distancing, and hand hygiene. And listed here are some other things that we hadn't mentioned before, but that sick students and staff must remain home. So it is so important to be honest when you're filling out that symptom screening. And if your child is sick, please keep them at home for the safety of everyone else. Complete your screening, avoid touching your face, following all posted signage. What I really want to say, though, is that the most important takeaway that I can provide for you all is that our actions must align with our desires. And so I will say that one more time. Our actions must align with our desire. So if our desire is to have our children come back to school and to have some in-person learning, then our behavior outside of the school must be in alignment with that goal. So that means revisiting those activities that Dr. Soglin presented in his slide earlier, and looking at the risk benefit of a birthday party or an indoor gathering without masks, and asking yourself whether it's really worth that risk when we are trying to bring our students and our staff back into our school environment safely. We are really depending on our community to keep us safe, and for this to be successful, we are leaning on each other to get through this. I know the vaccine is coming, the vaccine is here, and that's great news. I'm sure you all know that having the vaccine being produced and getting the vaccine into your arms are 2 very different things. It's going to be a process. It's going to take long time before everyone is vaccinated. In addition to that, being vaccinated doesn't necessarily mean you can't spread COVID. So we have to continue to behave the same way we've been behaving until the community rate of COVID is at a much, much lower level than it is right now. So for the foreseeable future, I am asking you to continue to wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands, keep our staff safe, keep our students safe. And I know that we can bring back in-person learning to District 65 in a successful and safe way.
Thank you.
Hi, so I just wanted to let you know, again, we've said a lot about masks. It is the state law, and I want to assure everybody that we are following all the state mandates, the guidelines, in everything that we do. Okay, so as far as masking, we do know that we will be masked at all times except for eating and napping. And one of the things that we're gonna want you to impress upon the kids, both families and teachers, is that it's a little bit different. We used to socialize at lunch. That was our time. Now we're going to have the mask, take it off for eating, put it right back on. Lunch is not the time that we're scheduling in to socialize. So that's real important. I do want to also talk about, again, we're asking people to bring more than one mask, though we will have masks available. Just again, stressing the importance of masks, okay? And then there's been some concerns. So additional PPE will be available for educators as needed. So pending their individual needs, okay? So you can see on the slide some of the things that we have available. And again, we are constantly referring back to the safest practices that we can from ISB and IDPH. So Illinois State Board of Education, Illinois Department of Public Health. With that being said, we can move on to Dr. Wild.
All right. So we're just going to offer a little bit of guidance then on how to just make sure you have the masks that you need for safe return. And we're reiterating this because it is the single most important thing that you can do and can have your kid practice. And most kids in Evanston are doing this really well already and have gotten quite used to it. You know, just reiterating for them, my mask protects me and it protects you. To reap the full benefit of the mask, you can actually look at the CDC's website. They just came out with a lot of great graphics, and you can even dig a little bit more into the weeds if you're interested in some of the data. But you want to really select a mask that is at least 2 to 3 layers of a tightly woven fabric. You can test and make sure that that's okay by holding it up to a light, making sure you can't see light through it, or have fun with it with the kids and make sure that they can't blow out a birthday candle through it. It needs to fit tightly. So really, gaiters generally are not going to be something that you can wear effectively and well. And you don't want the masks that have a little vent on them. You want it to be a mask that goes tightly over the bridge of the nose, touches both sides of the cheek, comes under the chin, and is tight enough that when it's on the ears and a child is doing their regular activity, that it doesn't keep falling down. Once it's on, you want to set it, forget it, not touch your face again, and encourage them that if they do need to touch their face or they are going to remove the mask, they should gel before they do. That goes for touching their eyes and elsewhere on their face as well. They should wash their hands before. Make sure that you're packing an extra one just in case, but as Bernie said, they do have extras. They've got backups for your backups. And then even though most kids are pretty used to putting them on and taking them off, there's also, like I said, a nice infographic for people on the CDC's website, just teaching people about how to safely remove them so that you aren't contaminating your face or cross-contaminating on your mask using the ear loops exclusively.
I know we've talked a lot about mitigation being an important part of making sure that everyone, when they come back to the building, are safe. So we've done a lot of mitigation to our facility to make sure everything is done according to CDC plan and also according to science. what we've done, we've actually installed extra hand sanitizer stations all throughout the building. We put signage around letting the staff and also the student know to 6 feet social distance, wear masks, and to wash hands. And I know a big part of what a lot of people have been concerned about is the ventilation in the district. What I can say to you is being very intentional in making sure that we follow the guideline that was set by Illinois Department of Public Health, by Illinois State Board of Education, as well as the American Association of Refrigeration, Heating, and that's we've done that to make sure that we meet their standard. I'm going to talk at length about some of the things that we've done. We've looked at our unit vents and our HVAC system, and we've installed high-level efficiency filters in there. And based on the age and the abilities of our HVAC system, we've installed the highest level of filters that we can put in the system. We've also walked around and make sure that the unit vents that are in the classroom, they are not obstructed. And we've also followed the directive by the manufacturer as to how often, how frequently we should change the filter. We used to use fiberglass filters when this whole COVID started, but we found out through research and additional information that there's actually a pleated paper filter that actually works better than the fiberglass that we've been using initially. So we've done that. We've gone a step further. We went and looked at our HVAC system, and we set it in such a way that allows more fresh air into our building. And so, which is very important. We've also gone around, and there are places in the buildings that doesn't have direct airflow. What we've done is we've actually acquired portable HEPA filter to make sure that those spaces with no direct airflow have HEPA filter, which is what is recommended by expert in HVAC system to be able to take care of that. And we walked around and we repaired every single window in our buildings to make it possible, just in case we can, when the weather is pleasant enough, we can open the window and allow fresh air to come into the building, because we found out that's one of the more important things that you can do. So just to recap, we've spent a lot of time putting mitigation practices in place. One of the key areas we've looked at is air ventilation. We've readjusted the ventilation system to take into account, based on science, what is required to make us safe and to make our students and staff safe in the building. We've adjusted our air intake to put in more fresh air. We've changed the filters to make them work better. So we've done all these things to make sure our filtration system are wonderful. And we actually believe that with all the things that we've done, we've made the required mitigation to make sure everyone who comes in and out of our building should feel safe and comfortable. Next slide, please. So some of the additional things that we've done is we've gone around and actually marked the hallways and provided some of the signs that you saw in there, reminding our students and our staff to socially distance 6 feet. We've gone even a step further. We've looked at our bathroom, and what we've done, every alternate sinks, we blocked them off to make it easier for folks to be socially distanced. Every other stall also are being disabled and locked with signs on them so that there's enough room between folks when they're using the facility. The urinal, we've done the same thing there. And as far as fountains are concerned, we know using water fountains, it can be dangerous. So what we've done, we've disabled a lot of our water fountain, but we also recognize that our students and our staff need access to water when they're in school. So what we've done, we've acquired over 100 bottle fillers, which makes it possible during the day for folks to be able to refill their bottles and be able to have access to clean filtered water. I would like to remind everyone that when you send your children to school, make sure they bring a bottle, a refillable water bottle to school so they can use it to fill, to have access to bottle fillers so they can get fresh water during the day. Next, Phil. So we recognize that, as mentioned by Dr. Robinson, one of the most important things we can do is mitigation, mitigation, mitigation. One of the more important mitigation is to make sure that we keep our facilities clean. And one of the first things that we've done is we've decided that we need to hire additional custodians. So we hired additional custodians, and some of them have started, some of them are geared to start in the next coming days to make sure that we have extra hand. So we also, in checking what we needed, we realized that we needed a strong enough cleaning solution that would be able to kill COVID-19. So we went on the EPA list of acceptable cleaners, and we decided on one, and it's Ramicide. And we believe it abides by EPA requirement, CDC, and OSHA. We'll be using that to clean around the buildings. So that is very important for us to do. We also went a step further. We acquired some electrostatic machines. What that does is after we do the surface cleaning, the extra cleaning, what it does, it actually cleans viruses that are on surfaces. So we think that is important to do that. So to wrap up on this particular side, one thing I want everyone to feel comfortable about is that we take the cleaning of our facility very seriously. We've invested people, we've invested time to train our people on the best way to clean our facilities. And we've hired additional people to make sure that is done. One thing I don't want to leave out is we recognize that there are some high touch surfaces that needs to be cleaned. We have a process in place to actually go around and make sure our custodian clean those high touch surfaces like doorknob, light switches, rail, sinks. We clean those very frequently to keep them safe. So I just want to assure everyone that we feel very comfortable that we have the process in place to make sure our students and our staff will be safe in our facilities. So I want to recap again some of the things that I've said. We've, in setting up the classes, we used to have as many as 23 to 25 students in one classroom. What we've done is we realized we couldn't do that anymore. Everyone needs a minimum of 6 feet social distance. So we've done that. So we've realigned and we've reassigned the way we set up the furniture in our rooms. So the furniture are set up in such a way there will be 6 feet of social distance in the classroom. So we've taken out the extra furniture and we've stored it away. And some of the soft surfaces that were in the classrooms before, we've taken them out because we found out through research, it makes those soft surfaces makes it easier for transmission to take place. So we've taken them out. So we feel very comfortable with what we've done that is aligned to CDC guideline and sciences. We have 6 feet social distance in the classroom. We made sure that that no one will be using the lockers. We went out, we buy individual storage containers that students will be using to store their things. So there'll be limited opportunity, little or no opportunity for cross-contamination where kids are coming across other students' items. So we feel very good about the plan that we have in place for social distance measure, setup of the classroom to make sure everyone is safe when they come back to school. I'll pass it on to Bernice Jordan.
Hi, so we've talked a lot about the different health measures that we are taking. Some of these are repetitive, but we do want to stress that, again, although we're very, very thankful for our classroom volunteers at this point, we aren't going to be allowing them in so we can reduce the number of people in the buildings and in contact with people. We do have isolation rooms have been identified in all of the schools. We are using, again, the Illinois State Board of Education and the Illinois Department of Public Health guidelines for all of those rooms. So we have looked at, the ventilation that's in that room, the spacing in the room, there's bathroom. We have done all those procedures to make sure that our kids are safe and that there is a place for the kids who are not feeling well. Contact tracing is ongoing with the health department. So we have meetings, since they've had such a big influx now, we are going to continue to have meetings with them to see what we can do to help them and how we can do that. So we're continuing with that. So let's see, I want to make sure. Staff and families will be notified if there is a positive case of COVID in their cohorts or in their classrooms. They'll also be notified if it's a close contact. So 2 different letters would be going out. If you were a close contact, you're going to get a second letter that says your student may have been in close contact. We have mitigated a whole lot so that shouldn't happen, but there is always an unforeseen circumstance, and then that would occur that way. We are using the Illinois Department of Health exclusion tree guidelines. That really is helpful. It's spelled out really well as to if this, then that. So if you look those up, you can see what we're using, and they do continuously update it. And we continuously to look at it to see if we need to change anything with that. We will be setting up a dashboard for transparency so everyone will know number of positive cases or confirmed cases that are in the district. And we are going to make available to District 5 employees COVID-19 testing at the various school sites. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Beardsley.
All right, we're almost to the end. And I think as we've moved through a lot of really good, really strong, and really technical information, as well as a lot of things that are going to be different for kids or families, I'm going to kind of, as we set up instruction, I think I want to frame just for a moment some of the things that are absolutely going to be the same. And your child is going to be greeted by an educator that cares deeply about your child and their learning. And so as we walk into our classrooms, walk into our schools, and need to encounter different classrooms, we saw the photo on the slide a couple minutes ago, different procedures for the way we move around to bathrooms, the way we wash our hands, the way we interact with the materials in our classrooms. At the end of the day, your child is also coming into an educator that cares deeply about them and is going to support their success in this new environment and in this new shift. And we are going to build in the structures and the spaces to help kids develop the routines they need and to become adapted to the new ways of being. A second thing that has absolutely not changed also is our commitment to teaching and supporting both academic and social emotional learning. And so as we've continued to dig into and think about curriculum and our learning experiences, we've been continuing to revisit our Illinois priority learning standards and really try to say, in this environment, what are the most important things that our students do need to learn? And as they return, we are going to take the time to build routines to really help kids understand and navigate the different rules and routines that need to be in place in our buildings. And that will be in K-5 and in middle school. We know that we have students in kindergarten and 6th grade who are coming into buildings that they've actually never entered before. And so we will take that time, try to build the community and learn how to do this with different rules and spaces, maintaining social distance, keeping our masks on. And this is going to take some time and adapting. But the degree of care and professionalism that our educators and our building leaders bring to this work, and I think in the level of care that has been laid out in this plan, please have confidence that the care is taken and that we are going to make this transition in and support the learning needs. Just to revisit the elements that do need to be picked up for instruction, we have promised our middle school educators over and over, we are going to reiterate again and again, devices do need to be fully charged. In some cases, educators will still be connecting remotely with an educator. That device is going to be critical for our learning, so that's going to be a critical measure. We need to pay attention to the fact that we will have clear cleaning routines that we've covered. I think a lot of these we've hit already, but we have clear cleaning routines in place, and that certainly as weather improves, certainly not the where we are now, but we will also consider how we can move some of our learning experiences to the outdoors in order to always increase safety. And so key elements for instruction, we are focused on priority learning while putting forward and taking care of building routines, rituals, and relationships as we come back into school to make sure that we can make this adjustment successful for our educators and our students. And I think I'm handing back to Dr. Horton.
Well, what a journey this has been. I'm sitting here and reflecting on all the time that we've put in. Thanking our parents. You all have been remarkable. Contrary to what you see in the media, we really value you. I value you and respect your work that you've done at home, making sure that the students do that. We do our best to support your child and working with our great teachers. Our teachers have been remarkable. This staff on this call, I don't say this a lot to them, so they won't be shocked. They have been remarkable with getting us here and their teams. This has been a full effort across the board for everyone. Every single individual from our custodian staff, all the way through our board, our parents, the community members, we thank you. And we know that while this is not perfect, we have really put in the best efforts to make the best decision out of a bad situation. And I really believe that what we're doing, we will work to get our students back on track, both from a social emotional lens and also moving them forward academically. So I want to give you some of your evening time. We're kind of stopping right on the dime. Melissa, I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to say as we close out. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Horton. I just wanted to share that this evening's presentation was recorded. We will be sharing this out with staff and families, as well as the presentation and also some of the resources that we had referenced on tonight's call. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, and have a good night, everyone.
Bye.